Business is our agenda. What is your wish? Councillor Kennett.
Good morning, everyone. I'd move the agenda as presented. Thanks.
Any discussion? Councillor Messier.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, it's Council Day again, so we're not Zooming, we're live streaming today. That's how the system works, and so people could be or online. Okay, just so I have an understanding again.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Continuing on to minutes from our meeting held on November 26th. Councillor Moore.
Good morning, Mayor Wood. Good morning, everyone. I would like to move the minutes of our County Council meeting for November 26th, 2024 as presented.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried unanimously. We'll go down to reports. Item number 5.1, local growth and sustainability grant application. Good morning, Mr. Dietrich.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Today we're here to request that Council endorse the local growth and sustainability grant application for the Little Red Road upgrade, which is Township Road 354. The local growth and sustainability grant was announced in the budget and to support local governments to address growth pressures, economic development opportunities, and emergent needs in the community. The component is cost shares, meaning local governments with successful applications must contribute 50% of the projects with other revenues. However, successful applicants can apply up to 30% of the project costs from other provincial grants. We have submitted an application, administration, to meet the November 29th deadline under the roads and bridges category. A council resolution supporting this application must be submitted by December 20th. Council should be aware this is a competitive grant open to all municipalities, populations 10,000 to 100,000. There's only $60 million available, and we're asking for 5.8 of it million. So the likelihood of getting the full ask is probably not good, but you never know. We might get a portion of it, which we would be very pleased with. We believe that the road meets the criteria as set out. 75% of the traffic is non-local, and for council situational awareness, the traffic counts are between 600 and 1,000 on this road, which mirror very much Highway 54, which is a provincial highway. So our argument is that we're funneling provincial traffic, meaning only 25% of that traffic is Red Deer County residents. We did submit for the entire amount. You'll see 11.6 million, so that is all three phases. The program does go over 3 years, so we're very confident. If the province does give us the money, that we could potentially do this in 2 years, or maybe less, or even over 3 years. Depends on what the provincial requirements are. At this point, we're only doing for next year in the approved budget phase 1, but we do have plans for phase 2 and 3 in further years. You'll see that we're allocating 3.48 million of our local government fiscal framework money towards this project, and that's to show the province that it is a priority for Red Deer County Council. We're not using that money that the province gave us for nice to haves such as paving roads and the like. We're using it to rebuild an important road, and then we'll be coming 2.32 million obviously out of our reserves. Alternatives, really, there's only two. You either endorse the grant or you deny our request, in which case our grant application would not be endorsed. Recommendations that Council endorse the local growth and sustainability grant application for the Little Red Road upgrade, which is Township Road 354. Thank you.
Thank you for the report. Any questions of the report? Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Director Dietrich, for the report. Just a couple of questions. So the 2.3 is going to be over the 3 phases, is that correct? Or
Through the CEO to Councillor Moore and Council, yes, that'd be if we're successful, we would do 2.32. Obviously, if we don't get the money, the amount of money that would be coming out of reserves would be probably closer to the 5.8 million that we're asking from the province. Keep in mind that we would probably allocate the local growth and sustainable, or the LGFF. Oh gosh. The provincial little STIP money, we would apply that money 3 years. So we're going to use as much government grants as we can over the 3 years for the project.
Okay, and my other question is, were there any other projects that you considered that you know also take a lot of the other people's traffic, let's say?
Through the CAO to Member Moore, no. This is one where we had an approved project in our budget. We had the engineering done. We're ready to go. We're tender ready. We weren't tender ready for any other projects. So this is the only one that we considered.
Thank you.
Councillor Holzman?
Ready for a motion?
If there's no other questions? Councillor Master?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. We're kind of already got phase 1 in the budget. This is phase 2 and 3. Are they asterisk phase 1, 2, and 3 with dependent on government funding? Or are we going ahead with phase 1, and then if we get this new grant, I take it, then we'll move faster on phase 2 and 3 to finish the project? Is that how I'm reading this one? Or is phase 1 in jeopardy too if we don't get any of this money of this total project?
Through the CAO to Member Massier, no, phase 1 is approved in your capital project. You note that you did approve a 5-year capital plan that included phases 2 and 3. So they are all approved. We do have funding in our plan and our path forward. So yeah, in 26 and 27, you'll see reserve use. We do come out of the woods, I think in 27 or 28, that we start to fully fund our capital program with our operating surplus.
So then this speeds up the project without using reserves, really is what this grant, this new, I guess that's the difference. This is a new grant that we're trying for, which will ease the pressures into the future on our 5-year capital is what I'm hearing now.
Through the CAO to Member Massey, yes, this is all about relief for our reserves and our cash flow. If we get the money, that's wonderful. It's a bonus that we weren't expecting. If we don't get it, we will proceed as planned.
Any other questions? Councillor Holzman?
Thank you for that clarification, Mr. Dietrich, because I know that we've discussed this in our capital plan and our long-term planning. I think this is a bonus. If we get it, it's the best gift ever, because that way the road gets done and it doesn't impact our budget so much. I want to thank administration for jumping on it, because I'm pretty sure this grant came out right away is what the discussion was around. And this road is in my area, and I have to tell you that the traffic is nonstop. So I really do see that this fits into the criteria, and I'm hopeful that we get the money. That's where I'm at. So I would move that our council endorse the local growth and sustainability grant application for the Little Red Road upgrade, Township Road 354.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Okay. I want to speak in favor of this, and this road is extreme priority for us, and not just a priority for us because of our own traffic, because of other traffic as well. And I think this is an excellent opportunity to fit a grant that actually fits the guidelines that I believe it does. And you know, part of the application talks about economic development, and I believe that this definitely can have a huge economic impact to our community. And currently, right now, it's actually a negative economic impact to actually not have this road done. So I'm looking forward to the possibility of receiving this grant. And I want to thank administration, you know, for their ability to actually get this applied for in time enough for us to make this decision today. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Continuing on to item number 5.2, Red Deer County and Mountain View ICF.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Barr. How are you today?
I am very good. How are you?
Pretty good, thank you.
That's good. This is considered a resolution to adopt the amended Red Deer County and Mountain View County Intermunicipal Collaboration Framework, or ICF, as per your attached Schedule A. On February 18th, 2020, County Council had adopted the ICF in accordance with the requirements of the Municipal Government Act at that time. Section B.6 states the ICF, or an Intermunicipal Collaboration Committee, shall review the ICF at least once every 4 years, commencing no later than 2020. So we are here today. The ICF committee met on October 16th to review the ICF. The committee agreed that no new agreements or amendments to existing agreements are necessary. However, it was determined that a number of amendments, minor amendments, were needed to update the document. All proposed amendments were included in the redlined version of your attached document. One amendment worth noting is the conversion of the agreement descriptions in Section D into a table, which was then moved into Appendix A. This may come up just as a note to with future updates. We may end up going down this road as well. That particular amendment allows the details of those agreements to be changed without requiring both municipalities to formally approve an update to the ICF. It gives us a little more flexibility to go down that road. As part of the agenda, the report was shared online. Direction on this matter is included in the minutes, which are published online and summarized in County News. At this point, administration is recommending adoption by resolution the amended Red Deer County and Mountain View County Intermunicipal Collaboration Framework. Thank you.
Thank you for the report and all your hard work on this. Any questions of administration? Councillor DePalm.
It's not really, well, I guess it is a question. Under Mountain View County at the very end where they sign, is Angela Alber's last name spelled wrong? There's 2 A's. It is? Oh, I just thought, I don't know. It looked wrong to me, so maybe it's not. This was coming from. Oh, okay.
Oh.
It just looked, yeah. Anyways, if it's fine, that's fine. That was the only question I had.
Any, Councillor Kennett?
Yeah, I just have one question with the one added piece in here. What is that, section C5? Considering additional service agreements between the municipalities, consideration should be given that user fees be the same for services for residents of either municipality. Has this been a problem in the past, or is it just clarifying what already exists?
Mr. Barr?
Through the CAO to Councillor Kennett, I'm going to defer to our CAO on that particular point, as I'm not quite sure about particulars of some of the agreements themselves when it comes to that.
Mr. Hertzberg?
Fair enough. Not a problem, Ron. Thank you. I think that what we have in that situation, we don't have that particular wording in our other ICFs. So it very much appears that it's something that is probably a bit of continuity for Mountain View. Not unlike us, they have many ICFs, right, with all their urban counterparts. And if you think of in the lens or the context of a draft template document that's going across many jurisdictions, and the primary ones being the urban-rural interface, that they're probably looking to establish that principle of sharing. I don't think it's going to be, it's certainly acceptable for it to be there, but I think it's much, much less relevant for us than it would be for Didsbury and Mountain View, or Olds and Mountain View. And I think if you look at their other documents, you'd see wording like that. And I suspect, much like us, with our 14 or 15 of them, we had a template and a bit of a similar agreement amongst them all. And then when we cross over to the other rurals, they sort of end up in that situation, same as us. So we wouldn't necessarily need it there. I can't think of a particular service or reason why we wouldn't necessarily need to have it there, but it also isn't a bad statement on the face of it that you would look at. If you were doing some service with them, you would look at cost equity to see whether it's there. It doesn't bind it. it just becomes, they're asking for it to be a factor. And if I definitely think it exists when you put the urban rural hat on and you think about the recreational services that these agreements cover, and it makes a lot of sense in that context.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Ramsey.
Thank you, Mayor Wood. There was significant discussion around like Section A, the term of the agreement, and I'm glad that it stayed in there that we still have to meet every 4 years to review it. I'm just curious, is there any risk with making the agreement permanent with no kind of end date without mutual consent?
Mr. Bart.
So through the CAO to Councillor Ramsey, I don't think we have any choice in this matter. So it's because it's in the MGA, we have to basically state that it's permanent, but our frequency is still a bit up to debate to a certain degree right now, because they're pushing some of those timelines. I think the last bit was 7 years or something like that between at least the initial ICF agreement being adopted and the updates. Having said that, Mountain View's pushed forward. We have no issues. We haven't added any agreements at this point, so we're fine with going down that road. But with some of the other ones that are coming up, there might be a bit of a delay. But the permanent part of it, I think we have no choice.
Okay.
Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mayor Wood. Thank you, Mr. Barr, for the report. Just the amendments, minor amendments, are you comfortable with that terminology? Because, minor could be quite subjective.
So through the CAO to Councillor Moore, I would consider them minor or administrative to be, if it was major in my mind, it would be if we're adding an actual new agreement. But in this case, we're moving things around to a certain degree, trying to make it a little bit more workable. That whole shift to the appendices part of it is something that came up. And like I said, we may investigate that with other ICFs as well. But it's pretty much administrative, I would have to say, just updating.
That's all I needed for reassurance. Thank you.
Further to that response too, I think for council to recognize it, one of the reasons you don't necessarily need to have a full ICF committee to look at a change is if you've got an agreement that both communities have agreed to and signed on, you've already had council involvement on both sides. So then it becomes just a matter of illustration. It's an illustrative purpose to show folks, the readers who sit and read these things through the night perhaps, can see that these are the agreements that are reflective of the relationship. But that'd be one of the reasons one of the tests when we take a look to see, is it minor or is it major? If both councils have already agreed by resolution to an agreement, then why would they do that and not reflect the change in the ICF? So it just takes away an unnecessary step because you've already sat. If something's new and contemplated that's completely not contemplated today, and you both parties are in agreement, why would they not include that in the ICF as an illustrative purpose? So that's one example of why it would be. We can take some of the relativity out of it by putting that kind of test against it. So hopefully that helps too.
Anyone else have a question? No, Councillor Holzman.
I can make the motion that we adopt by resolution the amended Red Deer County and Mountain View County Intermunicipal Collaboration Framework as presented in Schedule A. And I will comment that we met as a committee, Mr. Ramsey, Mayor Wood, and Mr. Herzberg, and we went line by line through this document, and it was very amiable. I really like the fact that we came to the point that the table went to the back of it, including the comments about South Red Deer Regional Waste Commission, et cetera, so that it was very clear that it wasn't in the actual document, that the appendices reflected all of the third-party contracts. So totally supportive.
Any other comments? Yeah, I'll just add, it's nice to sit down with another municipality and work together, after this number of years. And I look at a lot of these things, I would call them housekeeping. And when when it comes to taking a look at minor changes to this document. It shows that we had a pretty good document to start with, and what I do like is it gives us the opportunity to continue to work together. I believe this document's better than it was before. I want to thank administration for their work and getting it reworded. And I just look forward to continuing to work well with our neighboring communities, and especially in this case, Mountain View County. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Continuing on, item number 5.3, council recognition policy number 1.032. Mr. Hertzberg.
Yes, Mayor. Prior to this issue being discussed, we have just a tiny bit of legal advice for council in terms of last time this was spoken about, there were some concerns about whether there was any conflict of interest from members of council. And so we wanted to provide you just a quick legal opinion about that might inform your decision about whether or not any members of council feel they're in a conflict with this item. So if you maybe take a minute to read that, and we can, if you need to ask questions, we could perhaps either answer them here or answer them in closed session. But it's somewhat minor, but I think it's important that council feels comfortable that they're not putting themselves into a unintended conflict.
Thank you. We'll read this document, and when council's ready, we'll continue. We've all had an opportunity to read the document. I know in the past we've had a member leave the room for conflict. If anyone feels that they still need to do so, you have the opportunity. Otherwise, we'll have administration read out the report. Okay, everyone's still here. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a new council policy, number 1.032, council recognition policy. It is to formalize how council members are recognized for their service. In the past, members were recognized post-election. A formal invitation letter was mailed inviting them and any family and their guests. It was held on a Tuesday during a council meeting from 1 until 1:30, and a watch and a letter of appreciation was presented. Council Recognition Policy 1.032 will have two guidelines. The first one would be prior to election, and the second would be upon completion of service. Prior to an election, a council supper organized by administration will be hosted to celebrate the term. The guests will include each member of council and one guest, CAO, Assistant CAO, Directors, Manager of Legislative and Information Services, Manager of Corporate Communications, and the Executive Assistant to Council and CAO. Upon completion of service, past members will be presented with a watch at a value up to $500 and a letter of appreciation signed by the mayor. Alternatively, past members may select a gift of jewelry or artwork with similar value. If a member serves separate terms, they will only be provided with a recognition gift for their service. Administration recommends council consider council recognition policy number 1.032. Thank you.
Thank you for the report and your work so far to make this report. Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Miss. Thank you for the report. I like that it's, very clear there. I just have a question, and I don't know whether it's touched here, is if for some reason there was a councillor that was not in good standing for whatever reason, what would be our process then?
Mr. Hertzberg, can you help us with this one? Oh, Ms. Rodwell is. I know someone, in response, and Mr. Hertzberg, in response of no answer, you are the answer.
I am the answer. Oh dear. Sorry for everyone's luck, as Mr. Gerke used to say. So there is no particular definition for that, and I think that one could leave it as such. One could clarify it somewhat, but I think as it would read, we consider that the office itself and the terminology of good standing is a very serious and important distinction that really only the Minister of Municipal Affairs and a judge can change that. So I think short of someone being removed from their position, there may very well be in codes of conduct issues, I suppose in worst case scenarios, a little bit of, I think there's always a little bit of friction amongst council, any council, not this one in particular. I think that if you left it like that, I think everyone should feel entitled that short of them being removed from their position, you're recognizing that they put their name on that ballot, they represented their community and they did their work. And I think that if you left it where it was, that would be about the only reason you wouldn't consider this is if we're getting into that level, which would be very serious and very rare, I would imagine.
Thank you, CAO Hesberg, for that clarification. I guess I should have used that word removed, so that would be like a definition, yeah. I apologise for that difficult question, Ms. Henke, but it did cross my mind. Thank you.
Councillor Messier.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. And I appreciate administration looking into the pecuniary interest questions I had raised at our GPC meeting. And I like the answer and can accept that. And I've sat here long enough to see some of the past practices we've done, and it was here in chambers, and it's a formal affair, and sometimes tears come, and sometimes people don't show up because they don't want to, because there's different reasons why you might not be back after an election. So this policy, I don't see that formality of it, but I see the word guidelines. And so does that leave administration the ability to do it either formally with the tiers or just one-on-one if that's what the past guys want or things like that? Do I have to come to council on a Tuesday to get my watch, or can I just come out on a Wednesday afternoon?
Sorry, through the CAO to council. Well, there's two parts to this. The first one would be post-election, so there would be a formal dinner with council members and guests and staff present. So that would be post-election before any decisions have been made. Then the second part would be up to that member if they so choose.
And I like that flexibility. So certainly going to support this.
Any other questions? Looking for a motion. Councillor DePalm.
Just trying to get back to the. So I would move that council move the council recognition policy number 1.032. I think this is good to have it all in a policy, and it's there for everyone to see, and everybody knows what's going to happen. So, yeah, I'm definitely very supportive of it.
Any other comments? Some more.
Thank you, Mayor Wood. I also support this this Councillor DePalm's motion. I think, it really cleans up the policy, and I really like the fact that prior to the election, council can get together, because often that opportunity is lost if there's changes on council. So I really like the fact that for all the ups and downs that a term brings, that we can come together and celebrate and acknowledge each other and the work that we've done. So well done on the creation of this.
Other comments? part I like, honestly, the best of this is definitely the celebration part. You know, we all work together, and every council works together, and future council work together for 4 years. You know, to have that opportunity to actually reflect upon the work that they've done together, I think is extremely important. And I like that it's done, that we have this opportunity prior to the election. I fully agree with some of the comments I've heard earlier. You know, sometimes it's hard to come back, and it could be extremely hard for people to come back if they've lost the election later. You know, the celebration before is extremely good, and I like the idea, even though that, you know, we've given watches out forever that I can remember. I like the idea that it's formalized. I think it makes it clear. And I think that, you know, because the last thing we want to do is to be challenged on the policies, what we're doing, right? And part of what we're doing in Red Deer County is always to be open and transparent. And I think this is one of those things that continue to do so. Thank you. Thank you to administration. We know this wasn't an easy one, and we know this isn't easy for council to, you know, because sometimes we're thinking we're voting about something we could get ourselves, but we also want to remember is that this also will be hopefully into the future for many years to come, unless someone chooses to change it. So, all those in favor? Carried unanimously. Continuing on, council end of term policy, 1.033. Ms. Hankey, is this you again?
Thank you, Mayor. This again is a new council policy, 1.033, end of council term policy. Currently, there is no documented processes related to the end of a council member's term. Introducing a policy ensures processes are known by all members of council. Administration has clear direction on how matters are handled at the end of a term, and municipal assets, information, and resources are protected. The policy applies to all members of Red Deer County Council at the conclusion of a term or upon resignation or removal from office. The policy will outline the procedures for returning municipal property, revocation of access, and handling of confidential information. All records and information created during the member's term with Red Deer County is within the custody or control of the county and is subject to the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, any subsequent requests for information under the Act. Council members must return municipal property such as devices and keys to ensure the protection of municipal assets. Council members must return any Red Deer County records, including confidential information, to ensure that Red Deer County maintains custody and control of council records following a term and to ensure that records are disposed of properly. What is the end of a term? General election, the point in time when a new council is sworn in. The earliest this could occur is about 5 days after the general election. A resignation, the point in time when the resignation is submitted by the member of council to the CAO. As per the MGA, the resignation is effective on the date it is received or a later date if set out in the resignation. Or removal from office, the effective date in a court decision or upon a vote of council related to disqualification. Recommendations regarding physical property, revocation of the conclusion of a term. This is the standard for all municipal employees. Council members must return property no later than 7 calendar days following the end of a term. Council members will be given the opportunity to purchase electronic equipment provided by Red Deer County for the members' use during their term after the equipment is cleared of Red Deer County records, permissions, and accesses. Regarding records, members must return any confidential information no later than 7 calendar days following the end of the council member's term, including physical copies of closed meeting reports, physical copies of confidential records, legal documents and legal opinions, any electronic copies of closed meeting confidential documents or legal documents related to their position on Red Deer County Council held on personal devices. A member is welcome to return any records collected or received during their term to the municipal office for disposing. If a member of council fails to return physical property, they may be contacted in the future for copies of their records as they relate to information requests such as audits and requests for information under FOIP. Regarding access and/or permissions, revocation of the conclusion of a term. This is the standard for all municipal employees. This includes municipal email accounts, network and software access, and Red Deer County facility access. Regarding personal property, all personal property must be removed from council offices, lockers, and mailboxes no later than 7 days following the end of the term. If personal property remains after the deadline, it will be deemed unwanted, and administration has the authority to access and dispose of property that remains after the deadline. In regard to financial claims, all outstanding financial claims must be submitted no later than 7 calendar days following the end of term. The recommendation, Legislative and Information Services will provide an acknowledgement checklist to be signed by the member and administration. A sample is attached to the policy, and a sample checklist is contained also in this presentation, which is on the next slide. The recommendation, administration recommends council consider the council vacate policy 1.033. Thank you.
Thank you for the report. Are there any questions? Councillor Messier.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Maybe you can answer it, maybe you can't. It's more of a FOIP question. With regards to keeping records, I get it, the confidential stuff, the closed meeting stuff. If I happen to have any, I'll make sure you get them back or destroyed. But the rest of the records that I've accumulated over my term as a councillor, man, I got boxfuls of stuff that I'd love to burn. And, you know, my income tax stuff after 10 years. So do you know how long FOIP wants me to keep boxes in the basement? Or you did put that statement in there that you were welcoming us to bring those boxes here. So can you speak to that, or?
Ms.
So-
Robel?
Typically, what council has is what we call transitory records. So it means you typically have a copy of something, and administration typically holds the originals or holds what we kind of consider as the office copy and the copy that we document. So typically all of your filing is done by administration, and it's complete within this building. What we don't have is any sort of business dealings that you may have done that we're not aware of. It's only if they are in regards to council. There's very limited number of situations where that should be occurring. But anytime you're dealing directly with an employee of council that administration is not privy to, those are situations where council may hold records that administration doesn't have. And those would be the only situations when council would really have to produce a record, because otherwise administration would have it. The records that you typically have on your person that you receive at committee meetings, board meetings, and the like, again, those are what we call transitory, meaning it's a copy. Therefore, they are typically immediately eligible for disposition, which is why we're welcoming you to bring them in so that we can just simply destroy them, because we don't require that copy. We've already documented all of those. You have copies of agendas and such. We've already saved those and made sure that they're properly within our records retention and disposition. We don't save multiple copies of the same thing unless that copy has something unique to it that the other copies don't. So an example would be a contract with multiple addendums. We're going to save every single addendum to that contract because that's a business decision that we've documented the whole way through, versus an agenda which may just have a note of who is the mover. Those are formally documented in minutes, and therefore those records are not required. So you're not required to keep anything at your home. Anything that you have that was a business decision should be given over to Red Deer County so we can save it properly in our records, and everything else is ready for destruction. We appreciate if you return it to us so that we can shred it in a secure environment instead of it being burned and possibly blowing away in the wind. So we prefer the proper destruction here at Red Deer County Centre.
Thank you. Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mayor Wood. So along those lines, that really helps me. Like, how long, what is the acceptable time frame for, for us to get an inquiry or a call?
So every record has a different retention schedule to it. And because we wouldn't be privy to what you're holding, we wouldn't be able to provide you with any sort of timeline. But FOIP stands in perpetuity. So if you do not return your records, it is foreseeable that we could be contacting you in perpetuity.
Any other questions? Councillor Kennett.
Yes, thank you. I have a question. In Bill 20, has the resignation definition changed? Because in the current MGA, it's upon the CAO receiving a letter of resignation, regardless what date it has on it.
I do believe that that was taken as a direct quote. We'll just do a quick lookup and double check the MGA to make sure that those match. But at the time of prepping this document, it did. The big thing that changed in Bill 20 was the ability for a council to disqualify a member of council, which is why we caught that disqualification. But we'll just grab the MGA here and do a quick double check.
Any other questions while that's been looked up? No.
Councillor Kennett, you are correct. Section 161 sub 3 of the MGA states the resignation is effective on the date it is received by the Chief Administrative Officer, even if a later date is set out in the resignation. So that would need to be corrected.
Any other questions? So these documents that we're talking about, these are county documents. These aren't documents that if I send an email to a ratepayer, are they included in these and what needs to be returned, or what are you looking for? Just trying to figure out what kind of documents you're looking for. Just normal conversations and comments back and forth to ratepayers. Was that what you're looking for as well?
So technically, anytime that you're emailing with a ratepayer or anyone, you should be utilizing a county email account, which would mean that we have all of those records on our server, and they would be saved in accordance with our retention schedules that we have. So we have access to all the emails that you would have had on a server when you're no longer on council. So we don't require you to return those. It's any documentation that administration's not aware of. So the FOIP Act does not apply to a constituency record. The definition of a constituency record is not included in the FOIP Act, which creates quite a bit of concern. The average FOIP professional will tell you that a constituency record is any record created by an elected official that pertains to your election. Anything else is a record of Red Deer County and therefore must be produced. So again, it's that we don't know what you hold. That's why we're asking you to return it. It shouldn't be business decisions. Therefore, we think what you have is transitory, but just in case, that's why we're making sure it comes back to Red Deer County Center and that we can dispose of it properly and in rare situations, save those documents correctly.
So just further to that, are you looking for, like, if we have a journal, like a notepad for the day-to-day, or is that ours to keep?
Typically, a journal would be considered what's a transitory record because you're taking a note of what occurred. You're not documenting a decision. Again, your decisions are typically documented through things like minutes. If you're conducting business that administration's not aware of, then we need that back. But that typically isn't what is contained in a journal. That's typically reminders, copies of notes, those types of things, and therefore they'd all be transitory and would be eligible for destruction at any point in time.
Thank you. And seeing no other question, looking for a motion. Oh, go ahead.
So that's really made me think a little bit here. So am I understanding things that you may not be aware of that we may have? So what would be a scenario of that, Ms. Rodwell, to help me understand?
Yeah, so the big one is decisions related directly to your employees. So that would be your CAO and your auditors is really the only employees that Red Deer County Council has. So any decisions that you have related to your CAO and your auditors that Red Deer County staff aren't aware of is what we would require documentation on. Again, that should be limited. Typically, really the only documentation you have with a CAO is things like your performance evaluation, which you do approve at an open meeting of council. Therefore, we have the record. Your contract with your CAO, again, it's been signed here. We have that record. We have that. Your Auditors, we typically assist you with your RFP for audit services. Therefore, we have that procurement file and we have that contract. So there's very few scenarios where you're working directly with someone that administration hasn't supported you through a process with. Again, any of the records produced by your municipal auditors, we have the audited financial statements, things of that nature, again, because they come forward to a council meeting, they come forward to audit meetings. So we typically have all of those records. So it's very isolated situations where you're making a business decision that administration was not a part of and was not done in an open forum. They all should have been done in open forum. So there should be very limited situations where you would ever have documentation administration wasn't privy to.
Any other questions? If not, we need a motion. Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Mayor Wood. I would move that that we vacate policy. What is that? I beg your pardon?
It should be the council end of term policy number 1.033.
I move that we move the policy 1033 as presented.
Any discussion? Councillor Kenna.
Just that one amendment as amended.
Good catch, Councillor Kennett, as amended with the resignation date as per Bill 20. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Seeing no other discussion, all those in favor? Carried unanimously. Okay, we're actually out of business here, folks. Councillor Holzman.
Motion to adjourn at 10:16.
Okay, all those in favor? It's carried unanimously. Let's take a break. Come back in 10 minutes. 10 minutes enough for you? 15 minutes? What would you like, Ms. Rodwell? 10 minutes, fine. Come back at 10. Let's come.